Just a bit of news to start. I recently did an interview with the Elvis Information Network, and they've now published the interview on their website. So I've left a link in the description below. So if you'd like to read that, please go and check it out. Which country made the best LP covers? Today I'm going to be comparing the designs from the US, Great Britain and Japan from the 1950s to the 1970s. I'll be looking at the good points and the bad points of each design, and then at the end of the video I'll choose which one I think is the best. So if we start with the 1950s, this is a copy of King Creole from 1958, and the cover is basically two thick pieces of card with two sheets of paper over the top called slicks, and the back slick is slightly longer. It fits over the three edges, around the three edges, and then the front slick is pasted over the top of that. It's a fairly chunky, heavy cover that would have been in shrink wrap at the time of purchase, but the person who bought this album obviously had some compulsion to write the date of purchase at the top there on the back cover, which was October the 13th, 1958. A typical British cover from the period was this one here, the first album Rock and Roll on the HMV label. Now in the case of this cover, it's laminated on the front and the back. The card is much thinner than the American album, and on the back it has foldovers at the top and bottom, and also these stylish cutaways in the middle. The photograph and the text appear to be printed directly onto the cover. So let's have a look at a typical Japanese cover from the 1950s. This is Loving You, and this is closer to the UK design than the US design. The card is quite thin, just like the UK one, and on the back it also has foldovers, but it has no cutaways. Japanese covers would have cutaways from 1961, and that was about the time that they stopped using them on British covers. Now, like the British cover, this one, the design is printed straight onto the card, and it does have some kind of a glossy coating on it. It's not like a laminate film that was on the British cover, but it still feels much smoother on the outside than it does on the inside. Moving on to the 1960s, we'll again begin with the American designs. This is a copy of Potluck from 1962, and this is basically the same as the album we just looked at from America, King Creole. Two pieces of thick card with two slicks covering up the card. Again, that album would have originally had shrink wrap. British covers and Japanese covers were never released in shrink wrap. This is a 60s album from the UK, mid-60s, Elvis for Everyone. Now the design had changed a little bit by then. The front covers were still laminated, but the back covers were no longer laminated. So you just have this piece of uncovered card here at the back. And this particular cover still has the foldovers at the top and the bottom, but it's lost those stylish cutaways in the middle. And not all covers had the foldovers by that point. Some covers did, some covers didn't. The Japanese covers in the early 60s changed so that they were more like the 1950s UK covers. So this copy of His Hand in Mine from 1961 has a completely laminated cover, front and back, and as you can see it has the foldovers with the cutaways at the top and the bottom. The card used on the British and Japanese covers at that point was still very thin, just like it was in the 1950s. Okay, just to finish off the quick run through of the standard designs, in the 1970s covers were pretty much like this one here from Elvis Presley Boulevard, and this one still has a shrink with the hype sticker, and the design is again basically the same as the 50s and 60s albums. So the design of the American covers never really changed. Similarly with the British covers in the 70s, they were very much like the album's covers from the 1960s. This is The Wonderful World of Christmas. Again, it has a shiny laminated front cover, but the back is just a piece of unlaminated card. And by this time the foldovers had disappeared. Japanese covers changed again in the 1970s. In the early 70s there were a lot of gatefold covers, but from the Fool album onwards they basically went back to single pocket sleeves like this one here, Raised on Rock from 1974. Now, by this point, the covers were very much like American covers. Two thick pieces of card with a front and back slick, and there's no lamination on the cover. So by this time, very much like an American cover. The design of the American album covers basically caused three problems. The first one was ring wear, as you can see on this copy of Girls, Girls, Girls. And obviously that would have been caused by people storing records on shelves outside of plastic covers and just taking them out and putting them back onto shelves. And the covers rubbed against each other, and then you got this ring effect on the front. Another problem with the design of American covers was the two pieces of cardboard were only separated by two sheets of paper, the slicks, front and back. And one problem that caused was a splitting on the spine. So on this copy of Golden Records from 1958, the white paper on the spine from the back slick has started to peel away. So in some places you can actually see the two pieces of card underneath. This one actually also has a little bit of ring wear on the front. The third problem for American sleeves is fairly similar to the one we just looked at, and that is splitting of the top or bottom edges. And here's a pretty bad example. This is a monocopy of Elvis's Back from 1960, but the bottom edge has completely split right from the left side all the way to the inside. The design of the British covers was quite different to the American covers, and they came with different problems. So the first one was discoloration, like you can see on this copy of His Hand in Mine. So originally this would have been very white on the front and on the back, but over time it's turned sort of a yellowy browny colour. The 1960s UK covers with the laminated front covers and unlaminated back covers had other problems too. So the front cover of this album looks very nice because it's laminated, but the back cover, which is unlaminated, has got a bit grubby over the years through being handled with dirty hands, no doubt. Another problem that you had with the 60s UK covers, well, not only the 60s but the 70s as well, was the paste that they used to stick down the laminate on the front and also at the back here. The paste took up a slightly wider area than the film laminate, so that on the back you would be left with an exposed line, an exposed strip of paste at the top, the bottom and on the side. And with it being sticky, naturally it attracted dust. So in very bad cases, in covers which have been handled a lot or stored outside covers, you can end up with covers with really noticeable black strips along these three edges. You can actually remove that, and maybe I'll show you how to do that in another video. Another problem caused by laminating the covers can be seen on this copy of Burning Love, and that's known as laminate bubbling or laminate lift. On the spine, on this cover, all the way from the top to the bottom, the laminate has raised by about 1 centimetre all the way down. And also on the back cover, there is a little bubble down here in the bottom right corner. This cover is actually quite unusual because it's laminated on both sides. Also in Japan, because the basic design was quite different to the other two countries, there were different problems. So if we take a look at this 10-inch copy of Elvis's Golden Record, it doesn't look too bad on the front and on the back, but if you look at the side there, you can see there's a great big hole in the spine, about 2 or 3 inches. This was obviously caused by someone slamming the record in and out many times over the years until the spine has just given out. Now, just like the other sleeves from the 60s and the 1950s, in Japan the card on this cover is very thin, and even the fully laminated surface has not provided enough protection to keep that spine stiff. You do tend to get spine and top and bottom edge splits more often than you do with British covers, actually. Another problem that you get with Japanese covers is creasing along the spine as well, not just splitting but also creasing. So this is a monocopy of Girls, Girls, Girls from the early 60s, and there are a series of little creases all the way up the spine there. And also because the card is very thin, it's also prone to creasing. There's a little crease just up here where you can see the picture of Elvis. And a third problem that you got with Japanese covers was caused by the climate, and you can see that in this copy of Frankie and Johnny. It's quite a rare album, and like a lot of the albums in the mid-60s, it was released in a gatefold sleeve. Now the problem with the gatefold sleeves was that they were not laminated on the inside. They are laminated on the outside, front and back, but not on the inside. So what tends to happen with these covers over time is, especially around the edges, they start to turn a little bit browny, a little bit yellowy on the edges here, and also sometimes along the top and bottom and in the middle as well. These are the worst affected areas. Okay, let's try and finish on a positive note. Let's have a look at some really good examples of all three countries. So here is a copy of How Great Thou Art from 1967, American release, still in the shrink. Beautiful, heavy duty cover, really clean. You can't find a nicer copy than that. Really nice. On to the UK. This is a copy of Rock and Roll number 2 from the early 1970s. It still has the laminated cover. On the back it's uncovered, but it's really, really clean. This is what a really nice UK cover could look like when it was taken proper care of. And for Japan, I've chosen this copy of Potluck from 1972. It's on the RCA label, and even though it's from the 1970s, it still uses the 1960s style sleeve, thin paper with foldovers at the top. There are no cutaways by this point. There's no spine creasing, there's no damage to any of the edges, no creasing anywhere, no discoloration. Beautiful copy. This is what a 1960s cover, in this case 1972, Japanese cover could look like when it was properly taken care of. So all of the cover designs have their problems, but all of them can look really good if properly taken care of. But which one gets my vote? Well, I'd have to say it's the American covers that I like the best. You can't beat a really good American cover still in the shrink, in perfect condition, just like this one here. So America gets my vote. But how about you? Which countries' covers do you like the best? Are there any other countries that I haven't talked about that design better sleeves than any of these three countries? Please let me know in the comment section below. That's it for today. Thanks a lot. Take care.